Elections, as you well know, are just weeks away, and Democrats, not surprisingly, are hoping to buck historical trends and hold on to very narrow majorities in Congress. The issues of the economy and abortion definitely on the minds of voters ahead of November. 81% of voters said the economy is, quote, very important, unquote, and they vote for Congress. That, according to CBS News polling. 59% said the same of abortion. For more on this, Susan Page joins us now. She's not only a good friend of mine, she is the Washington bureau chief for USA Today. Susan, always great to see you. So you wrote a recent piece about this, reminding us all of the history for the incumbent party in a midterm election. Refresh our memory.
Well, we've had 19 midterm elections since World War II, and in 17 of them, the party that held the White House has lost seats in the House of Representatives. They've also lost seats in most of those elections in the Senate, but not quite to the very consistent theme that we have with the House. And the only two cases that are the exceptions was the midterm election after 9/11, when the country had undergone a big trauma. And the other was in 1998, when President Clinton, you may remember, was being impeached by the Republicans. And the result was voters, I think, decided to stick up for a good economy, the nation largely at peace, and delivered a kind of rebuke to the GOP at that point. But there really are exceptions. And the question is, can this be one of those exceptional elections, or are Democrats very likely to lose control of the House and perhaps the Senate?
So 65% of voters called the condition of the economy bad. That also according to CBS News polling. Republicans have been focusing and wanting to focus relentlessly, if they can, on inflation. Is it still as big an issue, or has abortion and concern about not only the preservation of that right, but attendant privacy rights begun to compete with the economy?
Well, definitely competing with the economy. I mean, the economy will always be an important issue, and especially when people feel really strained by the record inflation we're seeing now. Gas prices coming down, but food prices, rent still high. But abortion has changed the landscape of this election. Since the Supreme Court decision overturning the protections of Roe v. Wade, we have seen women disproportionately registering to vote as Democrats. And in these special elections, these handful of special elections we've seen Democratic candidates routinely do better than we thought they would do. Democratic voters and Democratic-leaning voters are turning out to vote. And one big reason why is the abortion issue.
So when we were talking about that history in previous midterm elections, you talked about the exceptions, 2002, 1998. I remember them both. Both are described as sort of external event-influenced midterm elections. And Susan, it feels to me like we have a couple of candidates, maybe three, for external events. One, the Dobbs decision overturning Roe versus Wade. Then another external issue might be the FBI execution of a search warrant at former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. Those would certainly be two. Possibly a third is the war in Ukraine and how that has had a destabilizing effect on the overall economy, gas prices and the like. Does it feel to you that external events are shaping, or at least partially shaping, this midterm landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. And always in ways that are not helpful to Republicans. This is such a different midterm election than Republicans thought they were going to have just 2 months ago. You know, President Biden's approval is getting a little better. It's still pretty dismal. It's still in the low 40s. You've got people very worried about the economy. By 3/4 of Americans say the country is off on the wrong track. That is a very serious number for the party in power. But every day we talk about Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump's actions there in the search of his property and what they found. Every day we talk about the repercussions in states of the overturning of access to abortion guarantees. Those are days we are not talking about inflation, and that is bad news for Republicans. We thought there would be a red wave. It no longer looks like it's likely that Republicans will win the House. It is possible Republicans win the Senate, but we are no longer looking at that kind of wave election that they had hoped for.
Susan, as you know, every time there's a national election, midterm or general, we always talk about Pennsylvania. It's just a constant. And there's news today in Pennsylvania that I think is relevant to this conversation. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman has just told Politico he's willing to debate Republican nominee Mehmet Oz because, in part, responding to pretty persistent harsh criticisms from Dr. Oz about Fetterman's underlying health. Just to remind viewers, Fetterman experienced a stroke, and he's been on the campaign trail, sometimes doing well, sometimes publicly having some issues. How has, in general, that question of health defined this race?
Yeah. Well, I think it's not. I think it's been unhelpful for John Fetterman, who has had a pretty good ride in raising questions about Dr. Oz's qualifications and past positions. And I think he didn't have a choice not to debate. You know, if somebody wants to be president or a governor or a U.S. senator, you have, I think, an expectation on the part of voters that they're going to know something about your health. They're going to know you're healthy enough to serve effectively in their interest. So I think that it was inevitable that Fetterman, like it or not, was going to have to debate, and that'll give voters a chance to see just how much they think he's recovered from that stroke. He's still leading in the state, but Pennsylvania is definitely a swing state, and so this debate will be important. I know we'll all be watching it.
Susan Page of USA Today, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Major.